Could be the last board meeting of the year. We'll see if we can make it. I'm thinking special called meetings for, just to see each other one more time. But maybe not, Ms. Hummel? Maybe not. Okay. Is there a board member that would certify closed session for us?
Mr. Chair, I certify that to the best of each member's knowledge, the Williamsburg-James City County School Board, while in closed session, discussed only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements as stated in Virginia law, and that only such public matters as were identified in the motion convening the closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered.
Thank you, Ms. Hundley. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Young. Ms. Aller?
Mrs. Hunley,
Aye.
Mrs. Ortigo,
Aye.
Mrs. Young,
Aye.
Dr. Beers,
Aye.
Mrs. Donner,
Aye.
Ms. Hummel,
Aye.
Mr. Dowell.
Aye. And is there a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
Mr. Chair, I move that the board approve the agenda as presented.
Thank you, Dr. Beers. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Donner. I noticed, I don't know if anybody saw this, our agenda is pretty light today. We don't have 16 to 20 policies on it. I don't know what's up with that, but we'll go ahead and approve this agenda.
We're being fired.
Who made the agenda?
Oh, no. Somebody took the week off. Ms. Aller?
Yes, sir. Dr. Beers,
Aye.
Mrs. Donner,
Aye.
Ms. Hummel,
Aye.
Mrs. Hunley,
Aye.
Mrs. Ortigo,
Aye.
Mrs. Young,
Aye.
Mr. Dowell.
Aye. All right, we'll move into the superintendent's report. Dr. Herron?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hiring season never stops, and our team is excited to host a job fair on Thursday, January 25th from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. at Lafayette High School. Please help us spread the word. We're looking to fill immediate vacancies, as well as full and part-time instructional and support staff positions for the 2024-25 school year. Interviews will be conducted on site and job offers will be made on the spot to qualified candidates. As winter break draws closer, I wish all families, staff and the WJCC schools community a happy and healthy holiday season. Schools and offices will be closed to the public from December 20th through January the 2nd, and we look forward to seeing students and staff back again on Wednesday, January 3rd. Thank you, Mr. Chair. That concludes my formal report for this evening. I do want to, however, to mention one person who, this is her last meeting this evening, one of many actually, but a senior staff member, Stephanie Bourgeois, Senior Director of Student Services. This is her last official board meeting and she leaves in 6 days, Ms. Bourgeois. In 8 days, retiring and going on to other things, and we just appreciate her 12 incredible years of service in her position. She's one of the most efficient, most effective administrators that I've ever worked with, and we're proud of the work you've done, Stephanie, and we wish you all the best in the future. Thank you. Mr. Chair, that really concludes my announcements.
The integrity, too. I think the superintendent gave you 2 extra days.
That's right.
I'm going to take it. It's been wonderful working with you, Ms. Bourgeois. Any announcements from school board members? Dr. Beers?
Oh, yeah, I just wanted to mention, some of you may have remembered this former superintendent. Dr. Gaten Caruth passed away at the end of November. She'd been ill for some time, but this was pretty sudden, and we got word from her son, Neil. She was a superintendent here for 3 years and helped in turning the WJCC school system in some new directions. She very much was responsible for us getting our second high school, which we badly needed back then, and she will she will be missed. She was a mentor and friend to me and my wife Carol. Carol was her assistant superintendent for the duration of her time she was here as the superintendent. And if you talk to a lot of people around town, one of the things that has been said over the years. The three best superintendents we have had in many, many years are the professional women who assumed those positions here. And that would be Dr. Heron, Dr. Beers, and Dr. Gaten Caruth. Thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Beers. Any other remarks, announcements from board members? Okay. Move on to item 5.1, audit report for the year ending June 30th of 23. Dr. Heron.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This evening, we're excited to present the annual audit report, and Ms. Ewing is going to introduce our guest this evening.
Thank you, Dr. Heron. Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Annually, we are required to have an audit of our financial records performed by an external audit firm. And this evening, Mr. Zach Lamorta, Audit Manager with Cherry Beckert, is here to share with you the results of our audit for the year ended June 30th, 2023.
Thank you, Renee. It's nice to meet everyone face to face. So as Renee mentioned, I'm Zach Lamorta. I'm with Cherry Beckert, and I'm the audit manager on the engagement. Laura Harden, who's the engagement director, was unfortunately not able to make it today. She had a conflicting meeting, but thank you for giving me your time. This way. There we go. So I'll just start off with a quick agenda. Just going to introduce the team in full, go over the results of the audit, and then some required communications around internal control, any misstatements, accounting practices, and other kind of considerations that we're required to speak on during the presentation. You'll see the note on the bottom as well. This presentation is just meant for the use of the school board and is not intended to be used by anyone other outside of these parties. This is the client service team that we have. So like as I mentioned, Laura Harden is the engagement director. Rob Churchman is the second partner review. I'm Zach Lamorta, the manager, and then we had help of Chandler Ward and Shelby Atkins, who did a lot of the field work for us. Moving on to the actual results of the audit. So we audited the financial statements of Williamsburg James City County Public Schools and the school activity funds for June 30th, 2023. The school's report was dated December 7th, 2023, and the SAF report was dated November 1st, 2023. In both audits, we issued an unmodified opinion to the financial statements, which is the best result you can have. There's no, better result than the unmodified opinion. So things went well overall. We also do a little bit of work on compliance testing with requirements that are government auditing standards and the specifications of audits of authorities, boards, and commissions. We noted no issues with noncompliance during those procedures performed. And also feel free, if you do have any questions during it, you can cut me off whenever. It's okay. Some required communications we like to touch on internal control. So as part of our audit, we consider internal control over financial reporting. We only apply limited procedures to the internal controls. We don't do full procedures, and due to that, we don't express an opinion on the internal controls themselves. We just use the internal controls to help us express the opinion on the financial statements as a whole. So just keep that in mind about the internal control. As we only perform those limited procedures over internal control, our audit's not designed to identify all the deficiencies within an audit. It will hopefully come up with, if there are any that it will show, but it's not designed to catch every single one. Outside of that, there's two major kinds of internal control items that we look for. They're called material weaknesses and significant deficiencies that may exist that we try to locate throughout the audit. A deficiency in a control, a material weakness, or a significant deficiency is just when an internal control that is designed or operated by the schools or is used by management or those employees in their normal course of business is struggling to prevent, detect, and correct any misstatements on a timely basis. With that said, I have the definitions here of the two main categories. As mentioned, the material weakness is basically a deficiency that it's reasonably possible that there's a material misstatement to the financial statements due to it. And then a significant deficiency is basically the step right below that of just a deficiency as well that might not have as material impact on the statements, but is just at least important enough to bring up as a piece of attention. Throughout our audit, we noted no material weaknesses in either the schools or the SAF audit. We did note one significant deficiency, which is reported in the schedule of finding and response as number 2023-001. Kind of in line with our internal control findings, usually along with that, we have what we call either corrected or uncorrected misstatements. So we're required to basically accumulate any misstatements that we identified during the audit and communicate them unless they're clearly trivial. There was one uncorrected misstatement this year related to a capital asset finding that we determined to be the internal control finding as well. This was brought up to us by management at the beginning of the audit. We did not find these ourselves, and they were properly corrected for during the year. Some more required communication from our side. Just overall accounting practices, any significant accounting policies are within note 1 of the financial statements. There are no huge changes to those policies except for the implementation of the GASB statement number 96, the subscription-based information technology arrangements, and with that there is no impact on the school's financial statements. So no real change in regards to the accounting policies. In terms of disclosures and related party relationships, we have a part of our audit where we try to evaluate the different transactions or relationships that the school may be a part of that would be classified as related party. We mainly look for things of undisclosed, related parties that we weren't sure of beforehand, any significant transactions that might have occurred that are outside of any policies or procedures that are used by the schools. Any non-compliance with laws or difficulties with identifying any parties. We noted none of that during our audit this year. There are no issues in terms of related parties or related party transactions. Moving forward, we also look at what we call significant unusual transactions during the year, just basically ensuring that all transactions are backed up by authoritative guidance, that they're being recognized properly in the correct fiscal year, and just overall, and then as well just checking to see if there are any transactions that were kind of outside the normal course of business, or that would be kind of unusual to the schools as a whole. We noted no such transactions for any of those categories during our audit. Continuing forward, as part of the financial statements, a big portion of what we look at are accounting estimates. There are some accounting estimates that are just a bit more sensitive than others that we find during the audit, which usually are just based on historical trends, any future occurrences, etc. The ones that we noted as most sensitive that could affect the financial statements were the capital depreciable lives and the actuarial computed pension and OPEB assets, liabilities, and deferred inflows and outflows. These are just, like I said, identified based on historical trends, estimations, and in at least relation to pension OPEB actuarial evaluations that the school obtains, either through the state or alone. The clearest PowerPoint slide of them all, a ton of words on this one, just stating that the financial statement disclosures are just neutral, consistent, and clear. As part of our procedures, we read through the notes and just ensure that things are either consistent with prior years or that at least they're clear to the financial statement users. And we noted no issues in regards to that. Oops. Some final items. So, as part of our audit, we usually end up performing some what we call non-attest services. So these are kind of outside of the audit itself, usually in terms of helping with maybe preparation of statements or something along those lines. For this audit, we had, of course, assisted the schools with the school activity fund preparation of the financial statements, footnote, and the supplemental schedules. For all non-attest services that we perform, we bring all the kind of deliverables to management to make sure they review it, and management then takes kind of overall responsibility for the results of said services, as we can't, for independence reasons, cannot also prepare something and also audit it afterwards. So we just make sure that management also takes responsibility for those items, which had no issue this year. And then overall independence, we noted no other circumstances or relationships that would have threatened our independence during the year, and we have met our kind of ethical responsibilities in accordance with all the ethical requirements related to the audit. So overall, there were no independence issues in the audit. Some more required communications. I think there's about 2 slides of these. just kind of overall items in the audit, we encountered no difficulties dealing with management, in performing the audit during the year. We had no disagreements in terms of, financial accounting standards or, items that we saw throughout the audit. No issues with auditing matters or no disagreements with what was in the statements or the reports. We had no outside consultation that we used as auditors. We, like I said, did not engage any third parties or outside teams outside of the engagement team. And we also, same for many of our audits, create a management representation that management reviews and will sign, just showing representations for related to the audit, be it, making sure that everything is correct, that everything was provided to us, etc. And we received that with no issue. As far as we were aware, to our knowledge, there was no such consultancy used by management outside of our own audit team that, actually related to the audit and any, accounting standards they might have had questions on. If we have any other issues, we were able to, discuss with management freely and openly during the audit, just ensure that they were solved in a timely manner. We did not note any such issues, but we keep that line of communication open just in case it does occur. As of today of this presentation, there was no fraud or illegal acts that we were aware of through our procedures, and there's also no events or conditions that would raise substantial doubt about the school's ability to continue as a going concern. So these are the other matters. So along with the financial statements, management includes the required supplementary information within the financials. They're not a part of the basic financial statements themselves. These are kind of a bit separate, but still required by the Governmental Accounting Standards Board. Similar to internal control, we only provide some limited procedures over these. We read through, ensure that they're consistent with the basic financial statements and that they include the necessary information. But with that said, we do not express a specific opinion or provide any true assurance on the required supplementary information. We just review to ensure it's consistent. Kind of similar with the other information category, similar to the required information. This is outside of the basic statements, so kind of outside of our purview for the audit. So we do not express a specific opinion on the other information, but we do read through it to ensure consistency and that it's clear and that there's no material inconsistencies within. And then finally, we'd like to add in a slide here just some upcoming financial reporting and auditing changes that might occur for either the next year audit or coming in future years. Those are listed right there. So there's 3 coming up. Of course, we'll always be here for management to be able to discuss any potential impacts of these standards on the financial statements for next year and the years going forward. With that, that is everything for me for the presentation. Numbers are on there for both Laura and myself. If you guys have any questions, I'm also happy to take any questions here currently if you have any questions on the presentation or the audit in general.
Thank you, Mr. Lamorta. Are there any questions for Mr. Lamorta while we do have him? In previous years, we've received a paper copy, a comprehensive report of the work that you guys provide, and it encompass cost centers and school activity funds in specific. Would we receive something like that for the board to review?
So we usually just provide the reports, at least in our deliverables. We have reports that kind of detail, kind of at a high level, any findings that we had, especially with the student activity funds. We've provided those up to this point to management, but there's no specific, based on cost principles or items along that nature that are kind of outside those deliverables. It's mainly just, we like to kind of condense our findings into one document. We call it the GAS report. And that will include any findings that are of note to speak on. And then there's also on the student activity fund an attachment to the back of, I believe, the internal control letter, just stating what schools did fall under any findings that we had during the year, and then we'll just list out by the schools.
And there were none?
So there, for the student activity funds, there were a few schools that had findings during the year. They mainly related around documentation of approvals. So just ensuring that usually what we would expect in a student activity fund or a school is that, say there was a disbursement, if one person were to, try to have that disbursement, you'd want an approver behind it. Someone just ensuring that the disbursement is correct and true. And there were only a couple instances this year that we noted in the sample that we had where we saw that documentation was missing.
And then another question around uncorrected statements, page 7 of your presentation. I know that I received a prior kind of notification or warning that this was going to be brought up in your report, but for the viewing listening audience, perhaps you can go into a little bit more detail as to what that uncorrected misstatement entails.
For sure. So we discovered this from management at the beginning of the audit. From our understanding, from what we learned of this item, there was basically 2 capital assets that were not put into service basically in the prior year. This resulted in some depreciation expense being missed, as all capital assets, they'll get depreciated over their estimated useful life basically. And because they weren't placed in service, they weren't being depreciated during that time leading up to this year. This was, of course, caught by the finance team this year, and basically the occurrence of how the uncorrected misstatement comes up is to kind of correct it to make things whole again in the current year. We basically had to catch up depreciation to what it should be or what it would have been if it was recorded in the prior year. And this, due to our materiality thresholds, we kind of set these each year in every single audit, and kind of based on where that, I think it was $1.1 million, I believe, was the total adjustment. Based on where that fell within our threshold, we could run that through the current year. And since that ran through the current year, it technically overstated the depreciation expense for the year as it included depreciation from the prior year. So that's why we classify it as an uncorrected misstatement. Related to that, and you'll see a reference to net position as well. That's kind of just like a subsequent event. Because of depreciation expense, that kind of flows through the net position. So because the depreciation expense was overstated, that net position also was also overstated, which led to that.
Mr. Dowd, if I may add to that, that was an issue from the 2018 school year prior to Ms. Ewing.
And what were the 2 assets, capital assets that we're talking about?
So I believe when we were reviewing it, they were just pieces of equipment. We don't go too in depth in the actual asset itself. We just look at the listing of assets. Yeah.
Also, for the general public's knowledge, that the schools that did have minor issues in their activity funds that the board usually receives, I think Ms. Ewan has a list of those.
Yes, it was Berkeley Middle School, Hornsby Middle School, and James Blair Middle School. This report should be included in board docs.
Oh, okay. Thank you for that. All right, I'll take a look. I appreciate the responses to those questions, Mr. Lamorta. Any other board members have questions for Mr. Lamorta while we have him? I'm trying to wrap my mind around a new audit firm taking the service for us this year. How is this made public for, I guess, public consumption on the website? How will it look? I'm just curious.
The financial statements will be posted on the website tomorrow.
Oh, okay.
And it'll also be attached to the agenda item under public comment tomorrow.
Great. Awesome. All right. Ms. Hummel?
So this document, this annual, that's in board docs,
Yes, ma'am.
that's what we used to get a hard copy of it.
Yeah, that's what I was speaking of. Yeah.
So I think that's what, so I don't know, this is a question, I don't know who, was the firm the one that gave us the copies? Was it, like, who
We
gave
print
us?
them internally. It was
Okay.
It was finalized late last week. If any board member would like a hard copy, we're happy to print one for you.
I'm fine, but I just wanted clarity on how it normally would happen. We would normally get it, right?
All right. Okay. Ms. Lamorta, thank you so much. I appreciate you and the work that Cherry Backert
Yeah, you got it.
has done for us this year.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
So much. Have a great Christmas and
You too,
holiday
as
season.
well. Thank you. Everyone as well. Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to item 5.2, All in Virginia. initiative. Dr. Heron.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This evening, Ms. Ford's going to give us a brief overview, high-level overview of the All in Virginia initiative. Thank you, Ms. Ford, for being here.
Good evening. Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board, and Dr. Heron. Today, I would like to provide you with an overview for the All in Virginia initiative that our schools are currently implementing. You may recall that all-in funding of approximately $2.5 million was included in the fiscal year 24 grants fund budget update Mrs. Ewing provided on November 14th. In September, Governor Youngkin launched All in Virginia, a funded initiative to support school divisions in implementing additional supports for students in grades 3 through 8 in 3 focus areas: implementing high-intensity tutoring, expanding and accelerating the Virginia Literacy Act, and addressing the increased rates of chronic absenteeism across Virginia. Our school division submitted an approved spending plan to the State Superintendent of Public Instruction that distributes our all-in allocation of $2.5 million aligned to the governor's recommendation for the use of funds. Approximately $1.5 million to provide staff, materials, and transportation to implement high-impact tutoring, $612,500 to purchase core curriculum materials and provide training required by the Virginia Literacy Act, $250,000 to support monitoring and communication to address specific students' need to improve attendance, and $132,500 of the all-in funds to allowable operation and infrastructure support expenditures to address performance gains or losses related to reading or mathematics. In partnership with families, schools are providing additional reading and math instruction through tutoring sessions led by WJCC staff and trained tutors from our local community. The staff at each school will notify the parents and guardians of students who may benefit from learning opportunities provided by the All in Virginia initiative. The tutoring sessions are designed to enhance students' classroom instruction for grade level standards of learning and address students' needs for targeted instruction to support achievement in specific skill areas. All school teams will provide tutoring opportunities throughout the school day in coordination with students' schedules. Tutoring will also be offered outside of school hours at the middle school level and at a small number of the elementary schools. WJCC has historically focused on providing high-quality Tier 2 intervention instruction at our elementary schools. The supplementary instruction delivered by trained specialists and interventionists has been informed by assessment data and targeted to specific literacy and math skills using evidence-based instructional materials and strategies. We have been fortunate to have a strong core of Title I tutors over the years who have provided intervention instruction to primarily K-2 students. The All in Virginia initiative allows our schools to expand academic support to additional students in grades 3 through 5. To date, our elementary principals have identified 27 teachers who will support before or after school tutoring and 22 tutors who will provide small group instruction during the school day. The focus of All in tutoring will be accelerating learning for each student, using grade level content to teach grade level skills, with teaching actions differentiated within the lesson when a student demonstrates the need for scaffolded instruction. Our school division has also historically focused on providing high-quality Tier 2 and Tier 3 intervention and supports in our middle schools. Like at the elementary school level, the supplementary instruction is delivered by WJCC teachers and specialists, is informed by assessment data, and designed to address specific literacy and math skills using evidence-based instructional materials and strategies. The All in Virginia initiative allows our middle schools to expand academic support to the after-school program. Our principals have identified 41 teachers who are supporting after-school tutoring. Identified students attend after-school tutorials on Tuesdays and Thursdays from 3 to 5 p.m. This program launched in our middle schools in early November. The legislation known as the Virginia Literacy Act, which was passed by the General Assembly in the spring of 2022, has numerous implications for literacy instruction in kindergarten through 5th grade in all Virginia public schools at the start of the 2024-25 school year. All literacy instruction must be delivered using VDOE-approved core curricula. The process to select a K-5 core curriculum for WJCC is underway, and we anticipate presenting the stakeholders' decision to Dr. Herron this winter. The Virginia Literacy Act also mandates statewide professional learning for elementary administrators and instructional staff, and the use of the state-selected literacy screening assessment. The assessment we now know as PALS is undergoing significant revision this year, and the updated and expanded version will be administered beginning next school year. In addition to supporting the state-required literacy training, it will be imperative that at the local level, we provide training and collaborative opportunities for K-5 administrators and instructional staff to effectively plan, deliver, and assess instruction using the newly adopted K-5 core curriculum materials. Grant funds to support attendance have been designated to fund a temporary attendance specialist position. This position, through the Student Services Department, will work closely with schools, families, and students to identify and resolve barriers to school attendance. Scott Casson, Supervisor for Student Interventions, has analyzed the available attendance data through last Friday, December 8th. When compared to the same period last year, daily attendance has increased by an average of 190 students per day. Total absences have decreased by 26%, and the average daily attendance has increased from 93.4% to 94.98%. These data points indicate that consistent expectations and ongoing communication are making a difference in attendance. We have also reduced the number of students who are considered chronically absent through this date from 2,637 students in December of 2022 to 1,617 students currently this school year. Each school having a double-digit decline in the students who are chronically absent. In closing, we would like to recognize our school administrators, their leadership teams, and the WJCC staff who have been working diligently to prepare for the All in Virginia initiative. We are looking forward to the full implementation of the new support programs and the growth our students will experience in the coming months. At this time, I am happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Ms. Ford. Ms. Donner?
Thank you, Ms. Ford. I have a question, and it stems from some feedback I received from a parent in that that parent had a child in one of our elementary schools who was actually reading above grade level and was pulled for additional tutoring. So my question is twofold. One is, what is the distribution of these funds across schools? And so how is that determined? Is it based on need? Is it evenly split? And then secondly, how are you identifying children in the schools for this to be administered to? Because for this parent, being pulled for her child actually had the opposite effect of that child felt being singled out, especially since the child was above grade level. So just curious as to making sure that our resources are going where they need to go.
So we've allocated the funds for tutoring to elementary and middle schools without allocating to specific schools. So each school is considering their student needs and then letting us know how many staff they need to hire. So we are looking at serving all of our schools based on their individual needs. And certainly as our schools are using the score bands that the state provided to identify the students who may benefit from All In, schools are making those decisions about which students should be served in correlation with their families. So yes, ma'am. As far as the student who was reading above grade level, it depends on the grade level of the student, which score bands were used to identify students for potential benefit from All In. For instance, our third graders, they were identified based on the fall student growth assessment that they took in early September, which is their first experience with a multiple choice test. And the third grade reading and math test in September were both based on third grade standards of learning. So it didn't assess second grade standards of learning that our students would have learned last year, but instead were based on third grade standards of learning. Our 4th through 8th grade students, who again identified by the bands the state provided us, were identified using their spring SOL scores. And we know that SOL scores, though they are very important indicators of our students' achievement, and we certainly look very closely at every student's results to understand how to better serve them, it is a one-day test. And a student can have a difficult day. And some of our students don't respond well, particularly our younger students, when they take these high-stakes tests. So I would encourage that parent to work with their school team, if they haven't already, to think about and consider other ways to potentially continue to bolster that student's confidence and their progress in a way that makes sense for them. And that's what we're trying to do, is make decisions for our students that are right for each and every individual student.
Thank you, Ms. Ford. Any other questions for Ms. Ford?
I have
Yes,
three.
Ms. Hundley.
For my clarity, the teachers or the communities that are working to tutor students, are those current teachers or are these people just in the community that have been trained?
So our principals have first started with their school staff to see teachers who are currently working in schools who may want to support before or after school opportunities for our students. And then moving from there, we have a number of tutors already in our building who are in a position to increase the number of hours that they might want to work each given week. So we certainly want to tap into their expertise because they're highly capable. And then we have posted positions, and our schools have hired a number of additional tutors from our community, and we will train them as we do our other tutors before they begin working with our students.
Okay, and as far as the all-in, some of the requirements, is there any additional requirements on teachers with all-in, or is it just the tutoring part?
Every building is making its own decision. Each school leadership team is making a decision about how students are monitored. We're collecting assessment data on our students throughout the school year and considering that as we make decisions for our students, but this gives us an additional layer of information about our students. And so teachers may be involved in monitoring the data of their students so that they are understanding their needs within the framework of their daily instruction.
And my last question for the attendance piece, how are we going to monitor, for example, I'm just concerned about the no transportation zone attendance students when the weather, I thought about it the other day when it was pouring down rain, or now that it's getting very cold. Will any of that monies maybe help alleviate some of that?
I'm going to defer to Ms. Bourgeois from the Student Services Department.
Good evening. The money from this grant is being utilized to bring on board an attendance specialist so that we will have someone that can be directly in the field working with families, and certainly any families that are having trouble with attendance will be part of that.
All right, thank you.
Yes, Ms. Ortega.
How long, this is a one-time grant, right?
Yes, ma'am. The funds, we may choose to use the funds over several years. Right now, we have written the our spending plan so that the majority of our funds for tutoring will be utilized this year, and then we can assess our student progress and the funds that we have allocated, whether all of the funds that we allocated to our tutors were actually used, and then we'll look to how we can support our students next year as well.
So, essentially, though, these tutors are being hired for 1 year?
Yes, ma'am. At this point, yes.
And back to the attendance number. Do we have those numbers somewhere that you cited? Because there's no, the attendance
We can
improvement.
certainly get those in an SBQ and give you an update. We did give an update at one of the former meetings, but we can certainly get you an update at the semester as to where we are with attendance.
So have the attendance, it sounds like we have not yet spent the all-in funds.
No, ma'am.
So the attendance improvements so far are not based on this.
That's all our work in schools with staff at the school level, following up parent attendance meetings. Ms. Bourgeois, I'm not sure if you have any information on those meetings so far.
I know the numbers are up. I don't have the exact numbers, but I also think that the establishment of the regulations that we put in place at the end of last year and how schools are consistently addressing attendance is making a difference.
Okay. And then, where's the? So the 250,000 for attendance is for one position?
Again, we're looking at 2 or 3 years, 3 years potentially, to employ someone who's focused entirely on attendance, like an attendance officer type person. Other school divisions have such a position, we don't. And so the opportunity was to do this through grant funds and then assess the effectiveness of the position over time.
Okay, because that is significantly more than we're spending on what we're calling reading and math performance. So is that also over multiple years?
The reading and math performance, that is to support professional learning this summer for our staff, to be prepared to deliver highly effective reading and math instruction next school year. So
During regular school hours, that's not tutoring.
that's not tutoring. No, ma'am.
Correct. And really, a huge, significant portion of the funds are allocated to the Literacy Act, which is a big push, from the Governor's office as well, which is great, because we're well underway, and this will enable us to take things even further.
Okay, and then one more question. I know you already, I think, answered Mrs. Donner's question about how kids are identified, and so you work with families saying we've identified, we think tutoring would help your child. These are the hours, and they can then say yes or no.
We have a letter, which is our standard practice for informing families when students should be considered for intervention instruction. And that's the practice we've used prior even to All In. So school teams, as they look at their students and they determine which students may benefit from additional instruction, they're going to communicate with families using that letter to let them know of the options that we have available through All In, which option may be the best match for their child. They take into consideration the children's academic needs, their daily school schedule, any other specialized instruction that they are receiving, so that all of those things are working in coordination. And they will inform the parent or guardian with that letter, and then certainly families are invited to ask questions, follow up with additional, asking for additional information.
Sure, and is there any avenue for a family or a parent to request tutoring?
To request
tutoring.
Our families can always reach out to their classroom teachers or to their school administrators to request meetings to talk about student progress and to find out what supports may be most appropriate for that student or available for that student.
Okay.
Certainly.
Thank you.
Ms. Hundley?
Yeah, Ms. Ortego's question led me to another question. As far as before and after school tutoring, what happens if a family cannot get, I'm assuming they have to get there, what happens if they can't get to the tutoring before or after school care?
Our schools are focused primarily on trying to embed the additional supports during the school day, because we know that that is what makes sense for many of our students and for their parents and guardians' lives. So beyond that, if there are students whose families are in a position to take advantage of either before or after school tutoring, then that's certainly an option for them. But we realize that that's a more limited option, so we are focusing on what we can do during the school day.
And that's mainly at elementary. At middle school, it's a little bit different.
Yeah.
Dr. Ward, if you want to just, we are providing transportation?
We are providing transportation for middle school. The tutoring program after school, we were able to do that working with our transportation department.
Ms. Donner?
It sounded like the schools were responsible for identifying how many tutors they needed. What is the expectation that has been set in terms of, is there a deadline by which they're supposed to do this? How is that structure being created for the schools and expectations?
So each of our schools have a team of specialist interventionists and tutors that they had already hired and were working with our students prior to the All In initiative coming to Virginia Public Schools. And so we have asked our schools to look at the students who are already receiving intervention, then as they look to the next tier of students who may not have been previously identified, then determining what they need with regard to staffing. And again, encouraging each principal to access the pool of applicants for tutors, thinking about what may work for their staff in their schools, either before or after school, and making staffing decisions that make sense for their school schedules and for their students' needs. As I can say from Title I tutor experience, that tutor hiring goes on throughout the year. As our school teams continue to look at student achievement data and consider how students are progressing or may not be progressing at the rate in which they would anticipate, our intervention caseloads fluctuate throughout the year based on student need, and so schools sometimes find themselves in need of additional intervention support for their students. So then they turn to the applicant pool and may bring on additional tutors. So that's a common practice in our schools prior to all in. And so schools will continue to do that. We will be collecting a significant amount of data from our students at mid-year, and so we would encourage our school teams to continue with the practice of analyzing student data and deciding, are there students who have reached the progress goals that they set for them and they should move out of intervention and back into just solely Tier 1 instruction. Maybe other students have since demonstrated the need. Something has created a barrier to their learning trajectory, and so bringing more students in. So our intervention caseloads are very fluid throughout the year based on student progress and student need. And as principals identify the need for more staffing, then they are always encouraged to go back to the pool, hire additional tutors, and then we will support them with training.
If I could just add to that, there's not an unending supply of tutors in the pool, so there's got to be availability of qualified tutors to actually hire them, and we've done reasonably well so far. Also in the spring, several weeks out from testing, we always have intensive tutoring programs in every single school. So there's a certain point where things begin to take on and are ramped up by us regardless of all-in tutoring, but this provides extra people and resources to really take it even further this year.
Thank you for the presentation, Ms. Ford. A lot of great questions around the All in Virginia opportunity that it presents for the school division. I too am interested to see an SBQ on school attendance division-wide, and maybe as it compares to 2018, 2019. As benchmarks. But again, would also like to applaud the division, the administration, for vast improvement in attendance that we've already seen outside of what the All in Virginia program might offer. So kudos to those that have been hard at work addressing that issue. Yeah. Thank you, Ms. Ford.
All right, thank you.
All right, move on to item 5.3, portrait of a graduate. Dr. Heron.
Chair, annually we bring a presentation of the WJCC Portrait of a Graduate, or Profile of a Graduate, and Dr. Worley is here to present this evening. Dr. Worley has been struggling with some voice challenges, so if she runs out of voice ability tonight, we do have Mr. Walker ready to stand in at a moment's notice. And I believe, Dr. Worley, you've got some guests with you this evening.
Yes, ma'am. So good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board, and Dr. Heron. Tonight, I will share with you information related to the profile of a WJCC graduate for the class of 2023. The information presented this evening and the work supporting the success of our graduates represents a collaborative effort between school leadership, accountability and assessment, school counseling, our high school principals, the Department of CNI, our graduation coaches, our school improvement specialists, and the staff at all three high schools. Tonight I will present most of the information. However, I want to note we have a few people supporting the presentation this evening. My colleague, Mr. Walker, and I are very appreciative of our partnership with Dr. Molly Sullivan, our Supervisor for Data, Program Evaluation and Accountability, as well as Dr. Nicole DePlane, the Coordinator for Assessment and School Improvement. And we also have our three high school principals here this evening, Michelle Newcomb from War Hill, Paul Rice from Lafayette, and Howard Townsend from Jamestown High School. As a part of this overview, we will look at the graduation rates for the class of 2023, as well as overall information for the Scholastic Aptitude Test, or SAT results, the American College Testing, or ACT results, and advanced placement information. The class of 2023 began with a cohort of 936 students, with 868 graduating on time. This equates to 92.7% of the cohort earning a diploma within 4 years. The graphs on this slide summarize the demographic reporting group data for WJCC's 2023 cohort. The reporting groups, economically disadvantaged, special education, military connected, English learners, and homeless, are displayed in shades of green on the left, and ethnicity reporting groups are displayed in shades of blue on the right. Note that students may be in more than one group or category within these graphs. For example, you may have a student that's in the Hispanic demographic, but also within the special education reporting group and possibly military connected. There are two key percentages relating to the success of the class of 2023, the on-time graduation rate, or OGR, and the cohort completion rate, known as CCR. First, the 2023 graduating cohort of 936 students had an on-time graduation rate of 92.7%, with 54.3% earning an advanced studies diploma and 38.5% earning a standard or applied studies diploma. Next, the class of 2023 had a cohort completion rate of 96.4%. The cohort completion rate represents the percentage of students in the cohort that earned a diploma or completed a high school equivalency program, such as the GED. You will hear additional information about these two rates throughout the presentation. Also shown on the slide is the dropout rate for this cohort, which is 3.3%, or 31 students. The next few slides show additional data relating to the on-time graduation rate for our division, our 3 high schools, and the state. As a reminder, the OGR is the percentage of students in the cohort who earned a Board of Education approved diploma within 4 years of entering high school as a 9th grader. This slide provides a comparison of our class of 2023, the on-time graduation rate of 92.7%, to the state rate of 91.9%. Again, our rate is the green bar on the left, and the state's OGR is represented by the blue bar on the right. The next slide displays 4 years of WJCC OGR data. The 2018-19 school year is included to provide a pre-pandemic perspective as we take a look at the trend for our graduating cohorts across 2021, 22, and our current year of 23. Looking from left to right, you see that WJCC's OGR was 92.7% in 2019, 94.1% for the previous 2 years, and 92.7% last year. Although the OGR for the class of 23 is lower than last 2 years, we have consistently remained above the state's on-time graduation rate. The next 3 slides will provide OGR data for our 3 high schools. Each slide will provide 4 years of data to include the class of 2019 and the classes of 2021 through 2023. The high school's OGR is represented by the gray bar on the left. The rate for WJCC is the green bar, and the blue bar represents the OGR for the state. The number of students in the school's cohort is displayed under each school year as the end count, and the number within the gray bar is the number of on-time graduates for the school's class each year. This first slide shows Jamestown High School OGR data. Looking at the set of bars at the far right, for 2023, Jamestown had 318 students in its cohort. 296 students graduated on time for an on-time graduation rate of 93.1%. This is higher than both the Williamsburg and the state rates of 92.7 and 91.9 respectively. Next, we have Lafayette High School represented by the gray bar for each school year on the slide. Looking at the far right of this slide, the Lafayette class of 2023 has 296 students in its cohort, with 266 of these students graduating on time, with an on-time graduation rate of 90.2%. War Hill High School is represented on the next slide, and their data is in gray for each bar on the chart here. The War Hill High School class of 2023 had 322 students in its cohort. 94.7% graduated on time. This is higher than Williamsburg, James City County, and the state rates. We're going to take a deeper dive into the on-time graduation rate by looking at specific rate for reporting groups. Let's take a closer look and examine the on-time graduation rate for demographic reporting groups compared to the state. Again, the green bars in this display the 2023 WJCC graduation rate for identified reporting groups, and the blue bars, like previous slides, represent the state rates for the same group. The number of students in the 2023 cohort for each reporting group is provided under each set of bars. 170 black students, 126 Hispanic students, 547 white students, 293 economically disadvantaged students, 49 English learners, and 122 students with disabilities. Focusing on the last reporting group on the far right, the 2023 cohort had 122 students with disabilities, with 95.1% of the students graduating on time. This equates to 116 of the 122 students. We are proud of the continued progress of our schools and teachers with our special education group as well as other reporting groups. And I'll give you a moment to look at each category on this slide. The next two slides provide trend data across 4 years for our 6 reporting groups. From left to right, OGRs are provided for 2019, 2021, 2022, and 2023. This slide includes trend data for our black students, Hispanic students, and our white students. Moving on to the next slide. The slide shows trend data for our economically disadvantaged students, our English learners, and our students with disabilities reporting groups. In the next set of slides, we'll look at the cohort completion rate for Williamsburg, James City County, and our 3 high schools. The completion rate includes the cohort's on-time graduates, in addition to students earning GEDs and students completing high school in 5 or more years. These completers were able to complete a traditional diploma track or another program of study that provides access to college, trades, other programs, or a direct track to the workforce. This slide shows the comparison of our completion rate to the state. The green bar represents Williamsburg, James City County Public Schools 2023 cohort completion rate of 96.4%, and the state's rate of 92.8% is represented in blue. Our rate is over 3 percentage points higher than the state. This slide displays 4 years of cohort completion rates for Williamsburg. Again, the class of 2019 is included to provide a pre-pandemic perspective as we look at trends over the most recent 3 years of cohorts. Starting on the left, you can see that the rate was 95.2% in 2019. We have exceeded this pre-pandemic rate over the last 3 years with the 2023 cohort completion rate at 96.4%. The next 3 slides will provide cohort completion rate data for our 3 high schools for the same 4 years we've been looking at this evening, 2019 and then 2021 through 2023. For each school year, you will see the high school's completion rate first, represented by the gray bar, and then Williamsburg, James City County's rate in the green bar. The total number of students in the cohort for the school is displayed under each school year in the in count, and the number inside the gray bar is the number of completers. The Jamestown class of 2023 had 318 students in its cohort with 310 completers, which is a completion rate of 97.6%. Next, we have Lafayette High School. The Lafayette High School class of 23 had 296 students in its cohort, with 278 of these students meeting the criteria as a completer, meaning their cohort completion rate for the 2023 cohort is 93.9%. Lastly, we have War Hill High School. Like previous slides, War Hill's percentage is represented by the gray bars. The War Hill class of 2023 had 322 students in its cohort. 314 of these students were completers, giving War Hill a rate of 97.5%. And this last chart here summarizes for you, provides a table with the on-time graduation rate compared to the cohort completion rate for Williamsburg, James City County Public Schools and, as a division, and then broken out by the 3 high schools. On the next few slides, we will take a look at how Williamsburg, James City County students performed on assessments and coursework related to college readiness. Specifically, we will look at data from the Scholastic Aptitude Test, commonly known as the SAT, the American College Test, referred to as the ACT, and the Advanced Placement or AP exams. First, let's look at how our students performed on the SAT, which is one test that serves as an indication of the extent to which students are prepared for college-level work. The SAT assessment has 2 subtests, reading and writing, and mathematics. The scale score for these subtests ranges from 200 to 800. Combined, these subtest scores make up an overall SAT score, with a perfect score being 1,600. For reference, the mean or average SAT score is about 1,000. The SAT data shown here represents the class of 2023 students only, although students in other cohorts may have taken the test last year. These 389 students had a mean total score of 1,137, which was 24 points higher than the state and 109 points higher than the U.S. mean score. The mean score of 1,137 is also 11 points higher than the class of 22. Next, let's look at how our students performed on the ACT, which is another test that measures a student's preparedness for college-level work. This test has 4 sections: English, reading, math, and science. There is also a writing section of the test that is optional. Unlike the SAT on the previous slide, these ACT data are comprised of all students taking the test in the 2022-23 school year. Therefore, these data reflect test participants versus the class of 23 alone. The overall ACT score students receive is commonly known as an ACT composite score, and this composite score is an average of the subtests within the ACT test itself. Each subtest and the overall composite score ranges from 1 to 36. In 2023, 90 WJCC students took the ACT and had a composite mean score of 25.6. This mean score is higher than both the state at 24.6 and the national score of 19.5. Finally, shown on this slide are data related to advanced placement exams, commonly referred to as AP exams, taken by students across the school division. These data reflect not only students in the class of 2023, but any student who participated in an AP exam during the 22-23 school year. AP courses offer high school students the opportunity to complete college-level courses while still in high school. Colleges and universities often consider awarding credit to students scoring a 3 or higher on the AP exam and exempt them from coursework. However, this is not guaranteed. Students across all 3 high schools participate in AP courses with the option to participate in the accompanied AP exam. For the 2022-23 school year, 1,269 AP exams were administered in Williamsburg. The pie graph on this slide breaks down the number of exams by school. The next slide shows the number and percentage of AP exams with a score of 3 or higher during the 22-23 school year, along with the previous 4 years as a reference. In the first row of the table, you will see that WJCC had 888, or 70% of the 1,269 AP exams taken, receive a score of 3 or higher. Our 2023 summer school program opened opportunities for continued success for our students as well. The next slide highlights a few data points from summer school. During the summer of 2023, 8 students graduated from high school. 137 students were able to recover 304 credits. These students are not all a part of the class of 2023, but their hard work will become part of the successes of upcoming classes. Each credit recovered is another credit towards graduation. Additionally, 156 students earned initial credits in health and PE and economics and personal finance. We've covered a significant amount of data connected to the class of 2023, and you may ask, how did we support students and facilitate success throughout our schools? And how will we continue to enhance our efforts to continue to close these gaps? The answer is our continued collaboration and teamwork. This is paired with individualized, timely, and tiered academic support or interventions for our students. The collaboration of key personnel is an essential piece to our puzzle. Our teams are intentional with their work to include daily and weekly data-based conversations during collaborative teacher-team meetings or professional learning communities to refine our interventions and student support. Our offices of accountability and assessment and career and college readiness are coaching schools as we refine our practices as a division to ensure new people in positions have clear direction for data reporting and coding as it relates to graduation data. Our graduation teams at each school, led by graduation coaches and principals, make tracking every cohort and each individual student a priority, beginning with the 9th grade. Schools provide pathways to credit recovery for students who previously failed courses throughout the school year and in summer school. And we continue to focus on tiered support to learning during the day, which is a priority, with a focus on timely intervention and immediate support if and when a student falls behind. Moving forward, we'll continue to expand our strategies and enhance differentiation and refine collective practices to continue our momentum moving forward to close gaps. All of the remarkable work and progress highlighted this evening would not be possible without the dedication of our teachers and administrative teams, all under the leadership of our amazing high school principals, who are all in attendance this evening. At this time, Howard Townsend, principal of Jamestown, will share a glimpse of the work and successes of the class of 2023.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board, and Dr. Herron. We are honored to share examples of the incredible work facilitated by our staff over the past year. Our schools collaborate on many things. However, we always keep the individual student, his or her needs, and the person as a priority, not just the data or the numbers on a chart. Here are a few examples of our work across the school division supporting the class of 2023. This first example is from Jamestown High School. As you know, we need strong leaders to join the education field. One of our multilingual students is taking up the challenge. Our school counseling team and community partners work with our faculty and staff to create opportunities for first-generation college students to learn more about post-secondary options. Our dual enrollment coordinator met with families to explain the benefits of the program. Our school counselors use WJCC Foundation grants to take students in a small cohort of first-generation college students to Norfolk State University, Old Dominion University, and Virginia State University. Currently, this student is pursuing an associate's degree in criminal justice at Virginia Peninsula Community College with a plan to transfer to a 4-year college to earn a teaching license and return to Williamsburg to teach. Next is an example from Lafayette High School. Many of us have faced obstacles in life. Could you imagine losing everything in a hurricane and having to move to another country? In addition to moving, you are now placed in a school where you do not speak the language. This was a challenge faced by a Lafayette student who graduated in 2023. He was a self-motivated learner who began mastering the English language through American Sign Language classes at Lafayette. He entered our ESL program and within 3 years had exited the program and was a bilingual student. His new gift was spread to other ESL students and the community. He served on the International Club Executive Committee and brought fellow ESL students to football games and the school play. After graduating, the student joined the military. And our final example is from War Hill High School. Last year, a War Hill senior was faced with making a decision between continuing school or dropping out to help care for his ailing mother. He was a student attending New Horizons in the mornings with War Hill classes in the afternoon. He often had to miss school to take his mother to medical appointments, which impacted his academic performance. With the support of our graduation coach, his high school counselor, and his teachers, War Hill was able to create flexible learning opportunities such as student success contracts and Edmentum courses to get him through. In the spring, the student was offered a full-time job in his career path that would set him up for success after graduation, but a diploma was a requirement. The diploma requirement helped to keep him motivated and focused, so he took advantage of every educational option he was offered. He is now a full-time mining equipment assembler making $43,000 a year straight out of high school. These three stories offer a small glimpse into the work done at every school. Each year, we will continue our focus on making a difference every day for individual students as we continue to close achievement gaps and help every student to find a post-secondary path to success in life.
Thank you, Mr. Townsend. Finally, we are very proud of the continued success of our students and the commitment and work of our staff. As you hear us say each year, a graduation rate is a percentage representing a number. Our school teams know each individual name connected with this number, including their needs, strengths, and goals for the future. This is hard work, and it's heart work, facilitated by a school community who cares. The faces you see on the last slide represent the why behind all of this work. Thank you for your time this evening, and we're happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you both for the presentation. Any comments or questions from the board, Ms. Hundley?
Have a lot. Sorry. I noticed there was a drop with 22 to 23 on a couple of slides. First, that's my first question. Is there a reason?
Well, we've noticed there's lots of things that could be directly related to that. First of all, in 21 and 22, there was a lot more flexibility with things like testing and passing a test for graduation. We've also noticed in a lot of our work, we're really focusing on, obviously, the dropout rate's going to increase the graduation rate. And we, digging deep into our data, we've even got it even mapped out by year. You go back in time, some of the students that, for instance, may be on the dropout rate for one high school in 2023, they may have dropped off of our roll in 2020 or 2021. It didn't mean that we weren't trying to find them or locate them, and we did get hit with a couple of 20 and 21 graduates this year in our data, which we're being very proactive with in our coding and trying to track down every student now. Moving forward.
Okay, so my second question was the ones that don't graduate or who, I know you know who they are because in the report you say you know who all these students are.
I do.
Is there a trend, like is it some students maybe that are here from another country, maybe they're going back to their home, back and forth, homeland?
Well, to give, so I can answer that, looking at the data that for this current 2023 cohort, 50% from Jamestown were L students, 50% from Lafayette were L students. It's fluctuated a little differently at War Hill, but we know exactly where we need to dig a little deeper and put the work in. But I think every kid, no matter what their background or where they are, I can know from those stories that you heard Mr. Townsend talking about, they're times 100, you know. But yes, we do know exactly where the needs are, looking at the data.
The AP exams disparity between the three schools, I don't want to call it that, I'm not sure. I noticed between Lafayette High School, War Hill High School, and Jamestown High School, just for the public that may have been watching, that doesn't mean that Lafayette or the other schools don't have those classes in the school, and that's why those kids aren't taking them. Somebody may look at that and just wonder, why is there such a big...
Absolutely, that's a great question. So one thing that I would like to say to clarify that is our high school principals are doing a great job of opening the door to our AP classes. We're encouraging students to enroll. We're encouraging them to expose themselves to the rigor. And the data that we presented on are sitting for tests. So students may be in the classes and may choose not to take the test. Our first step is we want to get everyone through the door. And if you look at the enrollment data, you'll see that there are more students enrolled, which is the first step, and they're getting exposure to the content. They're interacting with the material, which is what we want them to do. They may or may not be choosing to take the test. So when you see that data, that's representing the number of students that actually set for an AP test.
Okay. My last question, this is moving forward. I know this was the 2023 class. I know we have a lot of amazing kids doing amazing things at the top level and even in the middle. That's where my two were, in the middle. But my concern is always for the 20 or 30 that we're talking about that just aren't doing well. And they matter, and they go out into our community. And there is a perception sometimes that we just, if we've tried everything and we just don't know what to do with them, let's just get them graduated. And so what can we do? Since we know who they are in the future, what are we missing for those 20 or 30 that aren't making it? I mean, who has those talks? Or
Well, I think every student that may be struggling, we evaluate, from kindergarten up to 12th grade, what are their needs, where are they, and what do they need? I think with high school and when students drop out, a lot has happened by that time. And it may be that over a summer, they moved, and I know, and we are, I think now, this year, feeling the impact of a pandemic where people did disappear, that it's harder to track them down over those 2 years. But when the students that are in our building, we're connected with those every day. So if someone moves physically not to where we can reach them, that's where the struggle is. But we keep looking. I mean, we're looking on social media, we're doing phone calls, we're looking on the internet, any way possible to find out if we know where that student is, and we can get them connected with school if they're in another state or another country, or if we need to get them back to Williamsburg to school, we work to do that.
okay, thank you.
Dr. Beers and then Ms. Young?
Yeah, first of all, I want to commend you on presenting a complete array of data on all the high school students. And I think the other thing that I really recognize is this is clearly, and it's been going on for a few years now, that this is a highly coordinated, extensive, integrated intervention across all three of those high schools. When you see, and I know they don't look very large, but they're still really important, and that is SAT scores have gone up, ACT scores. In other words, whatever you're doing, whatever's going on now, I think is really making an impact, and you have so many people involved in it, from specialist teachers, that it just strikes me as a well coordinated effort at each of the high schools, and I know that takes a lot of planning on your part, but also on the part of the teachers, and sure, dealing with what about the kids who can't get there, the transportation. I'm sure, knowing what you've done in the past, I'm sure that'll get remedied as well, so that that won't be an issue. But and I'm concerned about the 20 or 30 kids, but I also want to point out that this is really significant, and for a large number of students, and the other students are probably, I think one of the things that'll happen, and I'm starting to see it as well, is intensive one-on-one tutoring, but you got to have the tutors and the time in order to do that. And anytime you do anything like that with an individual student, that's taking away from other time that he might be doing or she might be doing in school as well. But it's an effort. It's worth making the effort to do that for sure, because we're 93%, 97%. Those are not insignificant numbers, and I really you and especially the teachers really need to be commended on for doing that, because we did lose some time, we lost some learning. But what I'm seeing now is there was a dip for a number of reasons, but I'm also seeing a gradual improvement again, starting to get back up there. So
Thank you, Dr. Beers.
that's off, yeah.
Ms. Young?
Right. Thank you for the report. I always find this so much fun, and especially looking at those pictures. I remember it's always so much. When kids graduate, that's just exciting. One of the things I've always wanted to ask is, we know that kids do take the AP exam. How many of them that take the exam actually pass the exam?
Well, so if a student earns a 3, 4, or 5,
Right.
that's the range of scores that colleges and universities would consider sometimes awarding credit. It's not the same. It depends on the school that you go to. What was your question again?
I mean, how many kids get 3, 4, and 5s?
We can get that data for you. It changes each year.
Well, I probably won't have much impact after that, but I'm just wondering, because the other thing that came to mind when you were talking about this is I was talking to a parent whose student had taken quite a few AP classes, and it was a long discussion about the hours spent and everything, because kids invest a lot of their time in there. But the college did not take the credits, and so is that made aware to students up front that may
Yes,
not be accepted?
Right. It depends on the college or university and the course and the score. Some of them, it's up to them as to what AP exams they would exchange for a credit, and it's different depending on the school. But you can typically look that up, and that would be more, I can confirm that with Ms. Walter, but when you research the schools that you're going to go to, usually there's a list of courses associated which they would consider the AP credit.
Okay, that's good to know. The other thing is the percentage of graduation. It was 92.7. That was the same as 2020 as this past year, right?
2019. Yes, ma'am.
Oh, from 2019, because that it would be interesting to just, as a curiosity, but I'm just wanted to continue to see it climbing. But the only other thing I wanted to address, I want to just talk about is attendance. When Miss Huntley and I went to Jamestown High School, Mr. Townsend spent quite a bit of time talking to us about the efforts that the high school is making to increase attendance. And it, like you said, and like Dr. Beer said, you can tell that it's a very concerted, coordinated effort to get these kids into school. Prior to the pandemic, was this the same problem as it is now?
Attendance?
Yes.
I think we've always focused on getting kids in school. It's not a significant problem, but we've wanted students to be in school each day. We know that kids do the best when they're in school, getting that direct instruction from their teachers. And if they miss time, it takes extra time and time after school and before school to make up what was missed. I don't have the exact date in front of me. I'll look to my boss over here to see.
Well, I think attendance rates were probably a little bit better, but I think there were still certain populations of students who were more difficult to get to come to school on a regular basis. It would be interesting for board members to really live the life of a graduation coach for one day and be with that person and see the work they do to try to get students to school, because it's absolutely incredible. making phone calls, visiting homes, getting the student extra help where needed. And Mr. Townsend, you can speak to this much better than I can. You're living it every day.
Yes, our graduation coaches are putting in a lot of work, and it isn't it isn't just showing up to school, but really just engagement with school. We've had a very successful fall, all three high schools, with state championship berths, and band and art and plays. These are students who show up to school every day because there is a coach, there is a director, someone in school that they can connect with. And that's where we really try to intercede before this process of not coming to school or dropping out really gets rolling.
If you notice, we have a big emphasis on completion as opposed to graduating on time, because there's a lot of students who want to leave to work to support families. And so GED programs and other means of actually completing high school become much more significant. And so our emphasis is yes, as many as possible graduate on time, but ideally we want every student to complete their high school diploma. And so there's two things working in different ways, but if you notice, our completion rates are actually pushing up as we find alternatives for those students who will not earn a normal diploma, who may be in GED or some other support system to get them through high school, because that becomes really significant for a job later on.
Really significant, not only for a job, but future earnings. And I see head shaking back there, but if you don't have that basic foundation, it's hard to move forward. Even if you decide a few years later to go to college, then you might end up going back and having to retake some classes. So I just want to commend our high school principals and Dr. Worley, you and Mr. Walker for all of your hard work, and keep up the good work, and let's get them all graduated. That would be the perfect goal. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Worley and Dr. Townsend and the entire team for being here and for all the work that goes into what we're seeing actually take place in our high schools. I don't think the completion focus is lost on the board. As I looked at it, I started crunching the number 68 and I graduated, but then you look at the completion rate, you cut that 68 in half, 34 not completed. And so I think it is telling what the focus is and really should be, meeting the student where they are and what they need to be successful. 34 students not completed. I'm curious about GED, the GED program, and my curiosity is, do we find that most GED students are students that had left school that year or the following year, or do we know if there's a certain timeline, I guess an approximate timeline for a student to have left school to then return? Are these students maybe 3-5 years removed from senior year? What's the typical GED student?
Well, typically, and I'll go ahead, Ms. Bourgeois.
Good evening. So for our ISAEP program for current high school students, they're transitioning straight from their high school program into our ISAEP program. And there are a variety of reasons why students choose to do that, but it's a perfect example of how our priority is to have them as completers. And we've already had a number this year. I think we have 14 completers already this year. So it's a program that really fits the needs of students for a variety of reasons. And that really is a choice program. That's something that we offer and students choose to be part of.
Gotcha. Great. Thank you. Any final comments or questions for, yes, Ms. Hall?
Did you have something?
I did, but it was kind of a small, detailed question.
time?
And I was trying to do some math quickly, and that's not a good thing for me, so.
You want to do your math, and
No.
Ms. Hummel? Go ahead.
Well, I just was looking at, we have the different reporting groups for on-time graduation rate. And we have the ones broken out by race, and then we have the other identified reporting groups. And I know we already touched on the fact that English learners is significantly down. But then I was also noticing that from 2000, from the black bar to the next bar, it looked, it looks like a huge jump. So I was like, what did we do that year to bring it up? But then I just noticed that the total number only went from 19. If 19 was about 50% and
Right.
23 was then 70%, that means we actually just lost kids, or we didn't have as many.
That's for each year. The cohort number changes each year.
Sure.
So,
It just seems, anyway, that, but I just wonder if also the English learners, that's probably dragging other groups down, right?
well, we're noticing that, the English language learners, for instance, in 2 of our schools, that was 50% of the dropout rate. So we're putting a lot of our resources and focus into supporting that population of students. And that's why I think the conversation about our focus on connecting really to a career path and all of the work that we're doing in Clear College Readiness with identifying career paths, all the small things from our mock interviews to getting kids connected to their future, whether it be the GED, whether it be, us working with them to allow them to go to work and complete their classes or recover credits. We're doing any, the non-traditional way to get students to the end goal, which is a diploma or another equivalent that will help them go straight to work or to college. So a lot of focus is on that.
So,
Thanks for putting the report together. Every year when I look at this, I keep thinking when you are giving us all the stats on the different reporting groups, for example, economically disadvantaged, English learners, and then students with disabilities. So we've got all these stats, but then we go right into the high schools, and the high schools have different proportions of economically disadvantaged and English learners and students with disabilities. Like some are more heavily, have heavier populations of those special subgroups, and yet you never see the breakdown from the high school perspective. What would always be interesting to me as a board member would be to see by subgroup, by high school, like how are those students doing? Because when you just are lumping them all together and you're lumping and you've got one school that's a lot bigger than other schools or has a lower percentage of economically disadvantaged students, and you've got that school, and then you're comparing it to a school that is smaller and has a heavier percentage of English learners or economically disadvantaged, and you're looking, I'm just like, the general public is like looking at these numbers and going, wow, or oh, and they shouldn't. That's not the way they should be looking at the stats for these schools. And so it's just, I don't know if there's a better way for reporting, but to me, reporting just the high schools by themselves with their stats does nothing for me. It gives me no information without the nuances of the subgroups. So that's my comment.
Thank you. We appreciate that, and we'll certainly look at it. Will be future years to do that. The high schools have become more similar demographically right now than they have been for a long period of time, although the percentage of with disabilities or English learners are, I think you still can differentiate perhaps in those two subpopulations potentially, Dr. Worley. But with regard to economically disadvantaged, I think the percentage is much more similar than it used to be. But certainly I think breaking it down helps us to understand maybe some of the outcomes, although we certainly would believe that every student can be successful with the right supports.
The only reason I'm thinking that is that there might be some techniques or some programs that might be really working well for that subgroup in one school. That would be interesting for me. to know,
Right.
so that then we look at other schools.
Absolutely, thank you.
And on a positive note, I always love the last slide because the memories, because my memories are the backflips and the purposeful falls. Nobody's ever got a picture of that, and that's what's always etched in my mind. But I like to see.
Mrs. Hunley, we don't want to encourage those in
Yeah.
the future. Quite glad we've had no incidents.
We're fine.
I almost
It's
had
out
a
there
heart
now.
attack.
Well, thank you both and the team behind us. I really appreciate all the steadfast work that's gone into attendance and providing all these learning opportunities. Completion of a graduation, fantastic. And just look forward to, on the other side of the conversation, watching the progress continue. Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to item 5.4, our school board annual self-evaluation. For this, I'd like to turn it over to our vice chair, Ms. Ortego.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just going to give a very high-level summary. We all completed, every year the school board completes a self-evaluation, the templates provided by the VSBA, and we give ourselves, there are a number of statements that relate to characteristics of effective school boards, and everyone rates by saying strongly agree, disagree, or strong disagree. And so we do go through the exercise of evaluating ourselves as a group and then compiling the data that everyone sends in. Thank you to all, to everyone who did it. Everyone completed it, and it was so we do have results from everybody. I don't know that you want me to go through what the 10 are. I will say that for all 10 of the characteristics of effective school boards, there were only 4 outliers that that were not strongly agree that we are meeting all those characteristics. And just generally speaking, the 2 sort of broad questions. The first one is, what do you believe is one of the board's greatest strengths? And summarizing everyone's comments on that, I would say there's unanimous consensus that this board is extremely respectful, professional, and supportive of each other, thoughtful, willing to listen to others, can handle disagreement or differing perspectives in a civil, collegial way, which is a major strength, especially in public settings. Honest, well-informed, engaged, genuinely concerned for the best interest of students, and striving for unity were also important strengths that were mentioned. And reading through what people wrote about strengths, I think we've covered every way you could say basically the same thing. So it was pretty unanimous. The second broader question is, what do you believe is an area of growth for your board? This is complicated because the board that will be growing from here on out is not the board that is sitting here right now. But what the conglomeration of answers was major themes included more focus on student achievement, more communication with community and schools, the need for a new strategic plan, and more clarity on how well we are delivering on the current plan, improved relationships with stakeholders such as funding partners, better consensus building, and then the training and mentoring of 4 new board members, while only 3 board members will carry over. So those are some of the things that the next board can focus on and hopefully work towards.
Thank you for that, Ms. Ortego, and I appreciate you taking lead on this as a requirement found in our standard operating procedure that we take care of this business November and throughout December, meeting in December to address the compilation. I recognize now we have 4 board members that will not be present in February for the board retreat. I want to give an opportunity to anybody that wanted to provide any comment to what you've read or heard this evening. Not going to twist anybody's arm. Okay. All right. Well, thank you again, Ms. Ortego, and thanks for everybody taking the time to put thought on paper as to what makes this board successful and areas to improve board relationships and board work. I do believe that it will be helpful for the board beginning in January. We'll move on to our action items for the evening. 6.1, if I can have a motion to approve personnel actions presented this evening.
Mr.
Chair.
Chair,
Oh,
I move to approve personnel actions as presented.
Thank you, Ms. Hundley. Dr. Beers, do you have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Beers. Ms. Aller?
Mrs. Hunley,
Aye.
Mrs. Ortigo,
Aye.
Mrs. Young,
Aye.
Dr. Beers,
Aye.
Mrs. Donner,
Aye.
Ms. Hummel,
Aye.
Mr. Dowell.
Aye. If I may have a motion to approve the minutes from the November 28th, 2023 meeting.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the minutes from the meeting on 11/28/23 as presented.
Thank you, Ms. Hummel. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Hundley. Ms. Aller?
Ms. Hummel,
Aye.
Mrs. Hunley,
Aye.
Mrs. Ortigo,
Aye.
Mrs. Young,
Aye.
Dr. Beers,
Aye.
Mrs. Donner,
Aye.
Mr. Dowell.
Aye. If I may have a motion to approve minutes from December 1st, 23 joint meeting.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve minutes from the joint meeting on December 1st, 2023.
Thank you, Ms. Young. Is there a second?
Second.
Ms. Hummel, was that Ms. Hummel? Thank you, Ms. Hummel. Ms. Aller?
Mrs. Young,
Aye.
Dr. Beers,
Aye.
Mrs. Donner,
Aye.
Ms. Hummel, Mrs. Hunley,
Aye.
Mrs. Ortigo,
Aye.
Mr. Dowell.
Aye. Item 6.4, is there a motion to approve the fiscal year 25 through 34 superintendent's proposed capital improvement plan?
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the fiscal year 25-34 superintendent's proposed capital improvement plan.
Second.
Thank you for the motion. Ms. Hundley and the second, Ms. Young, I think. Thank you, Ms. Young. Any discussion? I just wanted to thank the board for not just being present, but for actively engaging in the conversation with our funding partners. I want to thank the City Council and the Board of Supervisors as well for hosting at the Stryker Center, but also engaging in the conversation and asking some really meaningful questions, helping us understand how to continue to proceed with some of the really high-level needs that we see in the CIP, namely the Bright Beginnings preschool spaces, the two of them. And I have great confidence and encouragement leaving that meeting that we're going to see this happen, and we're going to see our students out of the trailers, 26, I believe, trailers. Was that right? 26 trailers into classrooms.
13 trailers, 26 classrooms.
13 trailers, 26 classrooms, yeah. And just look forward to being, maybe having an invitation to see some of those things happen. It's going to be a great day. But without further ado, if there are no other questions or comments around the CIP, we'll call the roll. Ms. Aller?
Mrs. Hunley,
Aye.
Mrs. Ortigo,
Aye.
Mrs. Young,
Aye.
Dr. Beers, Mrs. Donner,
Aye.
Ms. Hummel,
Aye.
Mr. Dowell.
Aye. And finally, 6.5, there's a motion to approve of release for compulsory attendance in case number R2324-10.
Mr. Chairman, I would like the board to approve the release from compulsory attendance case number R2324-10.
Thank you, Dr. Beers. Is there a second on this motion?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Hundley. Ms. Aller?
Dr. Beers,
Aye.
Mrs. Donner,
Aye.
Ms. Hummel,
Aye.
Mrs. Hunley,
Aye.
Mrs. Ortigo,
Aye.
Mrs. Young,
Aye.
and Mr. Dowell.
Aye. All right, we come to our meeting this evening for board member comments. I think I'd like to turn this over to Ms. Ortigo. Is that okay?
Sure.
Ortigo?
First, before we start our farewell, were there any other board member comments from anything that saw or heard tonight? Just wanted to make sure we didn't gloss over if someone wanted to say something related to anything presented. But yeah, this is, well, I'm going to move myself over here for a minute. So I am taking the lead on this right now as vice chair because our chair is among 4 board members who are departing. So this is a very bittersweet time for all of us. For those of us remaining, more bitter. For those of you leaving, perhaps more sweet. I don't know.
bittersweet nonetheless. You don't really realize until you come right up to moments like this how used to interacting and working with these people on a continued basis you become, and then it really does quickly become a family. And families agree on some things, they disagree on other things, but they still feel connected and they still feel like they belong together. And so it is difficult, especially with losing more than half the board in one night. So, and I do feel specifically this board. Now I've only been here for 2 years, but this board has really felt like it gelled quickly, and I think we really did, as we heard in our self-evaluation, I think we really did appreciate and respect each other and enjoy the many discussions that we've had. So the way this will go, because there are so many of you leaving, it's not just like 6 of us saying goodbye to one person. I will present a parting gift to each individual, and then for each individual in their seats, and I will open up the floor if there are any comments that any colleagues would like to make regarding any fun memories or special moments with that person or anything they'd like to say. And then after the school board gifts are presented, I will call each person up to the podium for another presentation as well. And then after that, when each person is called up here, that's when a departing member, if they have any farewell remarks they'd like to make. So we'll save it for that moment, not at the seat. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Okay. So I will start with Dr. Beers. Dr. Beers has served on this board for 8 years, and in addition to being a very engaged school board member and serving also as vice chair, he served on the HRETA Educational Advisory Committee, Special Education Advisory Committee, and Policy Committee throughout his tenure here, and I'm sure a number of curriculum review and other volunteer exercises as needed. And so we would like to present you with this cup for your thanks for your service. So I'd like to just open up the floor if there's any comments anyone would like to make, especially those that go farther back with Dr. Beers than perhaps some of the newer members, but it's open to anyone. Julie.
I'll go first. I probably go back farther with Dr. Beers than any of you guys for years and years. I mean, I don't know, 20, 30?
Before we even knew each other.
Before we even knew each other. No, seriously. So anyway, I wanted to just say that Dr. Beers, you are the best dancer on the school board. So you also have a hidden talent as an oyster farmer. I don't think too many people know that about you. As a board member, a fellow board member, I always have appreciated your expertise in literacy and special ed. I also enjoy your frank observations and comments. There's never any confusion about where you stand on any issue at any different time. And sometimes you voice what others may be secretly thinking but wouldn't dare to voice. Mm-hmm. So
Amen
anyway,
to that.
I just wanted to say it's been a pleasure, and I'll miss you.
Yeah, I was thinking about Jim because he came on the school board the same year I did with Julie, and I just remember the consternation of Mr. Kelly facing all of the new school board members. It's not an easy thing to happen, especially when you come on and you think all of a sudden everybody's going to do exactly what you want, and then you find out very quickly that is not what happens. But I agree with Julie about Dr. Beer's knowledge on literacy and reading. That's always been one of the things that I've really respected about him. I think that's brought a great deal of depth to the school board, and as a primary teacher and myself, it's close to my heart. But the other thing that, even though Dr. Beers is very frank, but I also think that Dr. Beers is very fair-minded. And I know he and I don't always agree on things, in fact, quite frequently. But he always listens, which I've always appreciated.
Well, we became really good friends, too.
We did become good friends, and in many ways. But thank you so much. And he has a lovely wife. I mean, really, I think I think she's going to be more happy than you tonight, isn't she?
Think so, yeah. I think so.
Okay.
I would say something about Dr. Beers. Dr. Beers, we had I don't know if you remember our first year together on this board, with me joining you on this board.
Oh, yeah.
Wow. Like fireworks every meeting. And
Well, we pulled together.
exactly right. And we pulled together. And I have just enjoyed the way you've challenged me to be a better board member, more studious, more thoughtful. You've given me those opportunities to grow. And I appreciate
that. You
that.
helped me learn how to be more patient, quieter.
It's been wonderful working with you. It really has. And I hope that the friendship can continue.
I'd like to just share. So I met Jim back in 2010 when my husband joined the School of Ed, and all the junior faculty named him Swagger. And so I would hear these stories about Swagger, but it's been a pleasure the last year to actually work side by side with Swagger. And just the way that I think I heard junior faculty talk about you, and now being able to be a colleague with yours on the school board, of, again, your thoughtfulness, your willingness to teach by example, and also sometimes explicitly explaining to us, as everyone talked about literacy and special education, but also just the forthrightness and the kind of can I say BS? No BS around, how you're thinking about things and how to frame things up. So it has just been a pleasure to get to work with you for this little snippet of time and get to know Swagger.
And for me, Dr. Beers was my dance partner.
Yeah.
And for those you don't know, we opened up a dance floor at this. No one wanted to dance till we got out there, and there's video of that, but only certain people can see that. And I've been trying to recruit for my next dance partner from the new board coming on, so we'll see how that goes. But this song came to mind. It's a song, but I know you like oysters, but it's this just one small section of I hope you still feel the small when you stand beside the ocean. Whenever one door closes, I hope one door opens. Promise me that you'll give faith a fighting chance. And when you get the choice to sit it out or dance, I hope you dance.
All right, thank you. And I will move on to Ms. Hummel. Also, 8, I'm sure, long years on the school board. In addition to all of her regular school board duties, Mrs. Hummel has served as New Horizons on the New Horizons Board of Trustees, on the Career Ready Advisory Committee, Policy Committee, which has been a heavy lift of late, School Liaison Committee, and on the WJCC Schools Foundation Board. So that's a lot of, and I'm sure many other volunteer curriculum review, tasks as needed as a school board. And so your many years of service and your many hours are also very appreciated. Thank you.
Ms. Hummel is, I can very confidently say she's the one board member, and I think probably the one person in this room every single time we meet that I just do not want to disappoint. Yeah.
That's an interesting comment.
Okay.
I have a lot of respect for you, Ms. Hummel. I've loved working with you. And I don't know what more to say about it, but just always wanted to, it's weird to say, make you proud as a colleague.
Thanks.
Well, I'll go next about Julie. One of the things, Julie doesn't say much. I think the first couple of years that she was on the school board, I don't remember her saying very much at all. But when she speaks, it's always full of introspection and knowledge, and she's very careful with her comments. So you really have to listen carefully because they're succinct and to the point and important. And the fun thing about being with her on the policy committee, she's very quiet. She has to endure me. But one of the things that I love is that, like when we're looking at policies, she'll notice anything that's wrong with grammar or punctuation, and which I kind of ignore. So, but it was a pleasure working with her on policy, and I don't envy Dr. Keever, because he's got more coming, and those policies just never stop coming. But it was a pleasure working with you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sure. Let's say a few things about Julie. We do go back a long way, but and there was a long time when we didn't really know each other at all. But I knew just about everybody else in the family. Her dad was my boss. He was the dean at the School of Ed. Her mom was the head of the nursing, not program, but she's in charge of the nursing and health initiatives for the OAs, or James City County Schools. And I actually sat on a couple of eligibility committees with her. You have, and I've told you have some very dear characteristics that were very much like your mom as well. So, and then I met her sister, who would sit in the back row in my classes, just jabbering away. I could never shut her up. And he said, "Yeah, that's Kathy." And then I met this wonderful, calm member of the family, who always seems to be able to see both sides of just about every issue that comes up, even if I don't. but I try. She helps me. She helped me try to do that, and that's good for everybody. So I very much appreciated that, Julie. Thanks.
Thank you, Jim.
I'll go next. My sister from the city. I will miss you as they throw shade at us sometimes. Not the board, but we get fun comments about being the city folks. But it's just been such a pleasure having you as my mentor this year as I came onto the board, and being the new member joining a group of 6 that was fully formed, and how you helped me understand how to be a board member, how to get into board talks, what to look at, when to look at it, and just how to integrate into the group. And so I appreciate all the introductions you made for me, all of the ways that you paved the way for me to be able to help represent the city and to help be a good board member and colleague to you.
And Julie was my mentor my first year, and I know I called her a lot, and she was very patient with me, always a good listener. And I would watch her, and she already knows I watch body language and I read the room. But when she's like this, but when she gets up to the mic, it's on. She's got something very important to say. And so just thank you so much. And I know I'm going to see you when I see you, especially on Facebook, and that beautiful grandbaby you have. And I'm going to live through your grandma years with you.
Thank you, Kim.
And I'll just mention something similar. I've realized that over the last 2 years, I have come to, maybe as part of a function of sitting across, but I have come to look at you during the meetings as the, like the stewardess on the flight. Like, is this okay, or is this not okay? and you do have a very strong and calm, quiet presence that does give everyone a sense of, it's, you're here, you're gonna handle it if it needs to be handled, and you are, it is comforting to know, like, okay, who am I gonna look towards, even when you don't realize it, you don't realize it till the end, but like, yeah, I would look at Julie to kind of gauge, is everything is a smooth flight, or we're hitting some turbulence? So, thank you.
Thanks, Sarah. Thank you, guys.
Okay, next. I have Mrs. Young, again,
Oh dear.
8 years, very long term. Mrs. Young, in addition to all of her duties as a school board member, has served on New Horizons Board of Trustees, the Student Advisory Committee, the Career Ready Advisory Committee, and Policy Committee, which again was a lot of extra work, especially in these last 2 years that I know of. And so, Mrs. Young, we appreciate all of the many days, hours, and the time you've put in. So, thank you.
I can't tell everybody what Mrs. Young's first words were to me.
Oh.
They weren't foul or anything like that, but we won't share that in polite company. But I will say that after she got to know me and I got to know her, we hit it off right away. Been friends ever since. And this was in 2018, and Mrs. Young, I think, was really instrumental in me running for the school board. Yeah. So just really appreciate you, and just whatever you saw that we don't often see in ourselves. Yeah, I'm going to be like this evening. I apologize.
You're making me cry too, Mr. Dow. This is not good.
Yeah. Thank you for your friendship, the encouragement you've shown me over the last 4 years, especially the last 2. You've been just a relentless supporter and confidant, and I'm not going to say I'm going to miss you. I won't miss you. I know we'll stay in touch, but working alongside you, serving alongside you has been really special. So thank you, Ms. Young.
Also, she's my former teacher friend, so definitely going to miss that. And when Sandy and I would talk, we'll talk for a long time on the phone. I remember the first time we sat down at a restaurant, I think they wanted us to leave. We were there like 2 hours just chit-chatting. And I know, I guess it's no secret, she's going to one of my favorite places, Wisconsin, where Frank Lloyd Wright has all his work. So don't be shocked if I pop up there with my family.
They
And
have a guest room.
okay, and oh, great. I don't have, so because there's some sites we haven't seen, so it's not goodbye, but see ya later.
Good. I hope so.
I'll go next. So, Sandy, you were one of the 4, because I keep thinking this is like, oh, everything's kind of coming full circle. So, along with Jim, and was it Lisa? You and me, right? We're all new on the school board. It was Mary Minor. Mary Minor.
No, but yeah.
Yeah. And we came in like gangbusters.
We did.
Yeah, we came in and we're going to change the world, each individually, of course, thinking that amongst ourselves. So
With very different ideas.
Very, very different ideas. But I remember just not knowing at first what to make of you. I think you didn't know what to make of me. And then all of the struggles that I saw you go through the first year, and then your perseverance through all of your struggles, and just coming to realize so much about you is about the students and the teacher experience, and your heart is right where it needs to be. And when I realized that, we might have different viewpoints on different issues, but the center and what centers us is very much the same.
Very much.
I've enjoyed our time on policy, and I don't know, you're going to miss us. Do you think that Sandy and I have left any policies untouched from 1970?
I don't believe so.
Okay. Yes, thanks. I mean, when we see the policies and it says last updated in 1970, we're like, okay, this will be easy. So
And I
anyway,
get retired.
so I've enjoyed working with you, Sandy, and I will miss you, but I think you're going to just love being in Wisconsin. And
Snow.
in the
I'm
snow.
so
She likes the
excited.
snow. She
Love
likes the
snow.
cold. So
I'm a
anyway,
snow person.
it's been a pleasure.
As Sandy said, we became really good friends. I particularly appreciated her international perspective from teaching in other parts of the world. It's too bad that other people haven't been able to do that, to just see how, other countries deal with some of the same issues that we're trying to deal with. We did find initially we disagreed on a lot of stuff, but
Almost
as we got to
everything.
know, but as it went on, we began to realize we agreed on many more things than
Right.
we disagreed, and that's sort of where we started that focus, and we did become good friends. The other words that come to mind are little dachshunds. And the first, and it's where, at your point, the first time I heard what this Alexa thing was. Remember, you'd say something and music would come on, and it's like, what the heck? So we immediately ran out and got another one for ourselves. Although what has happened is, because I was reading about this, we'll be, having dinner or something, sitting around reading the paper, and Alexa starts talking, and we haven't said anything. We're wondering, is there actually some little tiny, is somebody inside? Do they have cameras? I don't really know, but we did talk dogs, and I know you lost one of your favorites, and that's always hard. It's always very hard.
It is hard. And Dr. Worley, Russian people.
Anyway, but yeah, I do really mean it when I've said to you and I've said to friends that we're really good friends. We trust each other completely. Always have.
Completely. So.
I would just like to say I'm going to miss our long walks to the convention center, getting lost.
It was so hot.
But it was on that long walk, I had that opportunity to be alone with Sandy for probably 30 or 40 minutes in a stressful situation, but just to really get to know her as just a human being. And I learned almost everything I needed to know about Sandy on that walk. I mean, we were walking and we're lost, and she and I are trying to work things out and problem solving together. And then as we're walking, she's picking up litter. And so, that's right. You said your daughter would kill you for picking up litter but just for her, it was great. And I think it just speaks to who she is as leaving things better than she found it. And seeing where something needs to be addressed, being the person not to just say oh, look, there's litter on the ground, who did this, but to say there's litter on the ground, I'm going to pick this up and make a difference. And so for my 1 year on the school board, just watching how you really tried to make a difference and stand up for what you thought was really important for teachers and for students. And so I just really respect you for that, and enjoyed the conversations we had in our meetings. We learned about we're different generations, and we've actually got a generation in between us. And so
we're both older parents.
older parents.
Yes.
And being able to just, bridging those gaps generationally and finding those common ground pieces. So I really, really just enjoyed getting to know you this last year.
Same here.
And Sandy, I've also just really enjoyed working with you. We've had a lot of conversations, and you've been a mentor to me. And I respect you for your strong convictions and your willingness to not just express them, but explain them and advocate for them. And for your, like others have said, your staunch commitment to what is best for students and teachers and everyone around you. And so I really appreciate having learned from you. You're also very funny, especially in personal conversations. Some of the comments that that you say are just very direct and very funny, and I appreciate your sense of humor in the way you look at the world. So
Yeah, my children tell me I'm unfiltered.
maybe you're more unfiltered with them, but you're.
So, thank you.
Already went.
Okay. All right. And then last but not least, we have our chair, Mr. Dowell, who, in addition to duties as school board member, has served on the Student Advisory Committee, the Policy Committee, School Liaison Committee, Superintendent's Business and Community Advisory Committee as vice chair, and of course 2 years as chair. So that is a heavy load, and that we are incredibly grateful for your leadership. Thank you. And actually, before that we go around the room, we actually have one more gift for you because of your time as chair.
Right, excellent.
Apple.
Sweet. Thank you so much.
Start.
Yeah. First thing, what I have to say, and I've said to other people, and other people have said it to me too, Greg. You have been an absolutely outstanding chair, probably one of the best chairs we've had of the board in many years. You keep us on the track, whatever the course may be. I also think that your demeanor kept most of us, down where we're supposed to be when we're doing serious work. And I this is hard for me, but you really try to see the good in just about everybody, and that's just hard for me. I'm honest. I try. But you're a calm influence, a friend, very helpful. I can almost go through the list of the Boy Scout laws. He's trustworthy, loyal, helpful, friendliest, courteous, kind, obedient, cheerful, thrifty, brave, and reverent.
All right.
He's all of
right. That was impressive.
all those things, and I really consider him to be a real good friend of mine too.
Thank you, Dr. Pierce.
I can go next. So, Greg, you exude empathy and caring and love for this community and all the students. I mean, and it's okay to be emotional, and that to me, it's like you're like the dad of the school board. You're like the one, but the kind dad that just loves his children, wants to see them all succeed, doesn't want anyone fighting, wants everyone to get along. So that's the kind of leadership you've brought this year. I don't think the listening public understands the kind of emails that come into us. But for the last year, when you do have very divisive topics, you have differing viewpoints, you get some very, very strongly worded emails that come on either side of an issue. And one of, I think, our best school board operating procedures is that we allow the chair to answer on behalf of the board. I think that's one of the best decisions. Our board puts our trust in the chair to answer on behalf of all of us. And we are reading your emails, or at least I'm reading the emails that I'm like Dr. Beers with some of these. I'm like, good thing I'm not a chair because I'd be saying this to this person. But instead, you're so kind and so nice, and there's no way anyone can come away from an interaction with you without feeling like they're valued and their opinion matters. So I just want to say that's one of the things I admire.
When I write those, I'm thinking about Miss Hummel. Hummel's going to read this. Better get this right.
I get a little annoyed with some people.
But for the most part,
Just a little bit.
you're
just a
very,
little.
very patient, and there are some things, there are some people, and you would tamp it down and keep it under control. So thank you very much.
I met Greg. What year was it? I don't remember. We were working in a tent. It was early in the morning. It was very dark. And I'm looking at my watch, just waiting for those 2 hours, please pass. And then here's this person standing behind me. And I turned around, I started talking to him, and he was there to take over. I was so grateful that he was there to take over. But then we started talking, and we had the best talk. And as I was talking to him, I thought, this is a very interesting, knowledgeable person. And I think it wasn't too many minutes after we started talking. And I said, you should run for school board. And he goes, oh, okay. I don't know that you'll ever forgive me for getting you into it, but to me, serving on the school board is a privilege and an honor. But one of the things that I've seen him grow tremendously in the past 2 years. I agree with everything that's been said about him. I can't do the things from the Boy Scouts, sorry. But one of the things that I've always appreciated during this meeting, when we're having discussions, he will make sure that everybody gets a chance to respond. He'll double check and he'll check again, even after somebody else makes a comment. He always makes sure that comments, I think, remain in a realm of positiveness. I think he is very kind, and he cares about the individuals on this school board. And I count him as a great friend.
Thank you. Same here. Ditto.
Good thing.
I've had the opportunity to get to know Greg over the last year, and I echo what my colleagues have said, and to watch you help us navigate 0 controversial issues this year.
Yeah.
You know? I mean, all we did was approve gas trucks or whatever Mr. Snipes asked us to do. But to watch you not only help navigate the board through those things, but also as we're sitting in large public meetings where, people are voicing different perspectives on things, and sometimes in ways that could be jarring or controversial. Your ability to keep the decorum in that very, very large room. And so to keep, the professionalism and I don't know what's going through your head during those moments, but, what I always thought of is, right, you are very much, how do I model like the way, and how do I model, showing up in the world. And so for you to make sure that we are modeling as a school board the leadership for the school division and not allowing school board meetings to devolve into things that have happened in other areas, and kind of modeling for this is how adults can have difficult discourse and disagreement and conversation in a way that's respectful, and that's a way that we're kind of teaching our children who are maybe watching. And I just always felt like you had this, maybe it was Mrs. Hummel who was on your shoulder or others, that you were always just really aware of how you comport yourself and how you lead us, and comporting ourselves is really important because people are watching. And so I just really thank you for that. I thank you for welcoming me as a new school board member who, has questions, might make a mistake, and you're being very gracious with all of that. And so you've been a fantastic chair.
You've been a fantastic school board member. I have every confidence in the 3 that we leave behind, so to speak.
The bitters.
To man the gate. Yeah.
So the first time I met Greg, he didn't even remember meeting me, but it was at Stonehouse Elementary School. It was a Black History program, and he was so emotionally and choked up from the songs, and he was talking about his grandmother, and then I remember when I met you at school board, I was like, where'd that man go? And some of our conversations, because I always felt like, you were always concerned about, Kim, what do you think? And I was like, well, what do you think? But you were always with all of us. No, what do you think? That's what you feel, Kim. What do you think? You would always say that. And I really liked, and I like the emotional part, because you have a heart to serve. There's no question in my mind that you always wanted to just be of service and to be a good servant. And it dawned on me it didn't matter what I thought because you have a higher person that you measure up to. And so I know you're not going anywhere, but I can imagine you would love to hear those words, enter in my good and faithful servant, because you have been a good and faithful servant. And I know that's what you've strived for. And the tears and that emotion, it's okay. And that's part of you. And you need to be more open with that. It's my big mama advice.
Thank you, Ms. Hunley. Thank you so
Yes.
much.
And yes, so Greg is probably the person who I've talked to the most over these last 2 years. He's been chair the whole time. I don't even know the school board without Greg as chair, so it's hard to imagine. Last year I was brand new. This year I was vice chair. So in both of those capacities, I was speaking to Greg quite frequently, and I will really miss that. It's been I have learned so much from you. You've been a tremendous leader and mentor and friend, and you did always allow me to, when I had an idea or a question or a complaint, you did allow me to express what I was thinking and feeling, and say, okay, and how are you going to do that, or how is that going to play out? Think that through. And so that was a very beneficial exercise. Before Kim even spoke, I was going to say you are the personification of a servant leader, and you have led us so well through difficult times, and the impact, even though this board will be very different, I think your impact is going to last far beyond these last 4 years. So I will close by saying something that I've heard you say to people, that you do your family really proud. So yeah, with that, I will, if no one has any other remarks, I will ask each of you to come up. Those of you departing individually, Dr. Heron has an additional, not you. We'll start over with Mrs. Young. Dr. Heron has an additional presentation, and then if you wish to make any final remarks as an outgoing board member. Okay.
Wow. I think I've cried as much as everybody else tonight. You know, if you want to know what a highly functional board looks like, just listen. Thanks, Andy. Just listen. Respect. Friendship. Genuine concern. So I said I wasn't going to do this tonight, so my apologies. Okay, let me start again. Tonight we have lots of years of experience, 4 members with 8 years of experience. And 3 members actually brought me into this job. And I've had the honor of serving with you for almost 7 years. Okay, get over myself here. As just a little thank you from me and from the leadership team on the outside of skirts tonight. We wanted just to do something new for leaving members, because it's a very, very important moment for all of us. So a little plaque to give to each one of you, and it's a school board member, Sandra Young, 2016 to 2023, 8 dedicated years of service. The quotation at the bottom of each one says, "I want to make a difference with people who want to make a difference, doing something that makes a difference." It's a John Maxwell quotation, and it seemed to capture the essence of who you are as a board and a leadership team. So thank you. Sandy, thank you for your 8 years of service. We will remember especially your incredible support of our teachers, and thank you for everything you've done in the last 8 years.
really don't like being up in, well, I don't mind being up in front of people, but under these circumstances, it's a little difficult. But I did want to say that this has been an honor to serve. When I came on the school board, I'd only been in the Williamsburg community maybe 2 years, if that long. And I retired from the Department of Defense schools, and so, like Jim said, coming from that kind of background to a local school board has been an interesting experience, but I feel like that experience has been really important to help me on the school board. I've learned a lot about governance. I've learned I'm one of 7, which is really a shock. Because you think you're going to come on and like Julie said, you're just going to get it done, and then you find out that you have to develop respect and relationship, and you have to listen. And I guess if there's any parting words, I know Sarah's going to do a great job next year, because she's got 2 other board members that have been able to work on this school board, and thank Greg for the great example of leadership that he's given us. But I think there will be some challenges next year, and I think you can certainly cope with them and rise above them. And thank you for this wonderful plaque and for being on the school board. Thank you.
Mrs. Hummel, if you would join me up at the front, please. Mrs. Hummel has also served for 8 years, 2016 to 2023. And your leadership as parliamentarian and vice chair is greatly appreciated as well. I do want to remind everybody of one story about Mrs. Hummel, because I just can't stop myself. She's probably the best parliamentarian who's ever walked inside the school division. And those who were here at the time know she's the only person capable of stopping a whole room just like that. Yeah. Do you remember?
I wasn't there, but I've heard the story.
Oh, yeah. There was a public speaker who got out of line, and Mrs. Hummel very quickly did stop and got everybody right back in line again. Julie, thank you for your service. For Mrs. Hummel, what I appreciate the most is what you saw tonight. How can we do this even better next year? Even in presenting data tonight, how can we make it easier for the public to understand? How can we talk about things like student achievement at a whole new level? Because she does everything at a whole new level. Thank you.
I appreciate that this photo of me is much older than 8 years ago, so I'll take it. That's okay. So I have to put my reading glasses on for this. I had a whole nice thing all lined up and printed in 16 font, and then my printer didn't work. So here I am. I'm like trying to recreate it, but I wanted to first of all thank all those who went before us. So I'm talking all the school board members before us that I would, as a parent or listening to school board member meetings, or as a PTA president, I would sit there and I would go, why in the world are they meeting like that, or why did they make that decision? I would second guess everything they do until I became a school board member. And then I think until you become a school board member, you don't actually realize the lack of power that you have, and the fact that if you can't get along with people, if you're not building consensus, nothing gets done. So that realization, I have to just kind of, I think, apologize to all the past school board members that I've ever rolled my eyes at, because until you sit in their seat, you don't understand what they're facing. So anyway, I also want to thank the school board members that I worked with, like Jim Kelly and Kira Cook and Lisa Ownby and Mary Miners. The one that came, that I served with were great. I learned something from all of them, and they led the way for all of us. So I just want to say that's been kind of a fun experience learning from these different styles, but never, in a million years would I have expected when I signed up for 4 additional years in 2019, what would be what would be coming down the pike. I never in a million years. And so this is where I think the rubber meets the road for the real importance of the school board and of the work that we do. And this, if you want to make a difference, this quote here, I've never, ever seen the hard work that went in with Dr. Heron and her senior staff and the teachers and the parents and the children for trying to forge our way through 2020 and 2021, and we're coming out of it now, but still working on it. Just the agony of just dealing with the unknown, with people having different opinions, actually shoring up an entirely virtual school system. I mean, I look back at what you went through, what every single one of the people in this room went through during that time period. And the fact that we are all sitting here today, living through it, having lived through it, is just remarkable. So it was the hardest thing I've ever been a part of, and yet I feel like it was the most meaningful work as a school board member that I could possibly have given back to the community. So anyway, that's my spiel. To Sarah. Sarah, you're going to be a fantastic chair next year. Well, let's hope. Let's hope. 4 votes. So hopefully one other person will vote for you, and you'll be the chair next year because you're going to be great. You ask good questions. You come prepared for every single meeting. You're calm. You show that same kind of respect, and people are going to follow your lead. So you're going to be a great chair. Kim, I'm never going to call you Kimberly, not to ever be called Kimberly. Kim, you're going to be a fantastic vice chair.
No.
You're not?
Parliamentarian, stop! Parliamentarian.
No, for next year. Oh, no. You're going to be, okay, sorry. You're going to be the listen. So you're going to be the parliamentarian, and I will tell you my secrets for how to stop a crowd. But for you, I'm like just looking at Kim Hunley. Her motto is what? It's all for the children. Is that what it is? Always for children. And I'm exhausted looking at your Facebook account. I am exhausted looking at all of the events that you go to, the places you go, the people that you're with. I'm like, you do more in, 2 days than I do in 2 months. So you're there in the community with the kids, just enjoying it all, and you love it, and your love for all of it shows through. So, and thanks for all of our little gifts every I appreciate that. You bring a little joy every meeting with your kindergarten-esque kind of gifts. Okay. Vice Chair. Yes. Andrea, fellow city appointee. We are appointees, and darn it, we're proud of it. We're okay with that. And there might be people out there, I'm going to say this because I'm leaving, there might be people out there that think we are too educated for this role. But let me tell you, it's kind of nice to be educated so that you can be appointed to the school board. So anyway.
There's a benefit.
There's a benefit to being educated. Who knew? Anyway,
I have to be able to read board docs. Right?
Huh?
I have to be able to read board
You have
docs.
to be able to read board docs. So it's just, you're going to be great too. Between the 3 of you, I have no worries at all. You're in good shape. The school system's in good shape under Dr. Heron, and I want to thank all these people that sit through our blather for hours and hours, and then have an hour drive home. So anyway. Thank you all.
Okay. Thank you, Mrs. Hummel. Dr. Beers, please join me up front. Again, thank you for 8 years of service, 2016 to 2023. Thank you for your service and your leadership as parliamentarian and as vice chair of the board as well. And from all of us, again, we will miss you. You've been our expert in education. You've kept us right in terms of literacy and so many other things. And you've always been there for the students. So thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
Okay, well, I did the funny stuff before. Now I actually have I've actually got a written statement that, at my age, you never know if you're going to remember what you're going to say. So I had to write it down. It's been an honor for me to be on the school board for 8 years. I have to, first I was reluctant to thank her, but I have to thank Elise Emanuel, who caught me in the corner pocket one night and said, "Gee, did you ever think about being on the school board?" And I, "What?" And my wife is across the table. "No, he's never thought about being in the school board. I don't want him to be." Anyway, that's how it all began. And I appreciate the support from my constituents for electing me twice. I got to know an awful lot of them. Burning up a lot of rubber on the concrete, walking around my neighborhoods. I also very much appreciate the positive relationships I had with all of you. We may have had differences over the years, and I know we did, but we always united as a board to support decisions, even if we didn't agree with them. But once the board once the board passed or made a decision, we all got on board. We didn't go off somewhere and say, "Well, that's not what I really want." You can't do that. You can't operate like that. If there's one important lesson I also learned, Julie kind of hinted at this as well, that I learned as a board member, it's this: I'm only one member out of 7 on a school board. To exchange ideas, respond to issues collaboratively is the only way the board can fulfill its duties and responsibilities. It's my fervent hope that this collegiality and respect for each other will continue with the new board members starting in January 2024. While I am leaving the WJC School Board on December 31st, 2023. Happy New Year. Find my interest in our schools, and I will find other ways to continue my support for what I believe is the best school system in the Commonwealth. On a personal note, I have enjoyed working with and getting to know our superintendent, administrators, principals, teachers in the WJCC school district over the last 8 years. Their dedication and commitment and enthusiasm, even in some of the toughest times in helping students succeed in school, are really important. We're lucky to have such excellent educators. I will miss those exchanges and conversations and discussions. I wish all the best for the current board members and the new ones as they begin their work as the WJCC School Board in January. P.S. I will miss the current board members, but especially I will miss my dancing partner.
Dr. Beers, get again. Oh,
this is great. Whole family's coming down for Christmas. This is your granddad. This is your grand. Okay,
absolutely, and so you should. Mr. Down, you want to join me at the podium? As I couldn't say through crying earlier, this is what a real team looks like. It's what people look like when they really respect and care for each other and have worked so hard to send this towards the same common goal for so long. and for all those looking and wondering what we're doing here tonight in the community, like why don't they stop? Why are they doing all of this? Because it's important for the community to see that it's relationships that hold everything together, and that's what drives us forward as a school division. So thank you all so far. And really a lot of that you've said already tonight. The leadership does create some of that joint thinking and just relationships as a school board. And it's my pleasure tonight to give Mr. Dowell a memento from all of us around the room again. School board member, 20 to 23, 4 years, but 4 very different years. One as a member, learning very quickly, one as vice chair, and 2 as chair. I mean, leadership almost the whole way through his tenure. And just give that hold for a second. You know, Mr. Dowell, we're grateful for your dedicated leadership through the pandemic and through the many challenges that followed. And thank you for your unwavering dedication and leadership. And we all know that it's grounded in your faith and genuine caring for students and adults alike. And we really will miss you. Thank you.
We started the board member comments at 6:13. Where I'm going to do my best to wrap this up before we hit an hour. That's really silly to see vice chair, chair twice. It's silly because I was incredibly nervous and anxious about being a school board member at all. And I swore to myself, I am not going to be chair. I do not want that. I cannot do that. But because of the support and guidance and care and compassion of the people in this room, we were able to do it as a team. I was able to sit in that chair for some reason and just listen to the conversations, the deliberations, the way the work needed to be done, just really kind of get out of the way, I think. Just get out of the way while everybody else in the room did the heavy lifting. And there's so many that have, and I just wanted to thank so many, beginning with my wife, Sarah, and my children. You know, speaking of, mentioned it earlier, people believing in, you know, things that you might be able to do that you don't really see for yourself. That's certainly my wife. You know, I was wrapping up a graduate degree in 2016, 17, somewhere around there, wrapping it up, not quite done. And my wife said, in public policy, by the way, and my wife said, what are you going to do with that? I said, well, you know, I don't know. I really don't. So shortly thereafter, interestingly enough, ran into Sandy, and the Lord's path and desires began to spark. Had conversations with Miss Holly Taylor. I don't know if what she really thought of me in that first meet up where I said, hey, I'm interested in running for your position. I don't know what you'd like to do, but if you want to take a break, I think I'm ready to serve. And it took 3 or 4 meetings to convince her that I was serious. Interestingly enough, in, I want to say, right around April 1st, April 2nd of 2020, I ran into Holly in a grocery store. We weren't, it wasn't mask required at that time. So I saw her gigantic smile and laugh, clear as day, because we were in the throes of a shutdown and pandemic. And I walked up to her, I said, did you have any idea? And of course she didn't, but we had a good chuckle there. Thank you to my wife and children for allowing me this privilege to serve. You know, I was thinking on this recently. I don't really know of anything really altruistic in life, because somebody has to give, right? Even for service like this, somebody has to give. And for my family, my wife and my children certainly have given full support, forgiveness of time, forgiveness of temper. they've just been rock steady where and in the ways that I've needed them to be over the last 4 years. Thanks to, and it's been mentioned a few times here, former board colleagues. I think it's Jim Kelly, Kira, Lisa. Who am I missing? Am I missing anybody? Those were foundational years, tough years. But, you know, iron sharpens iron is what God's word says. And I believe that we saw that come to fruition in those early years that I had the opportunity to serve with them and learn alongside them. And certainly this current school board, it's just been an incredible pleasure these last 2 years. Dr. Herron, you bringing us out of a pandemic and then getting us to not just returning to normal, but exceeding expectations that the division had for this, the central office and school boards had for the division 2017, 18, 19. And to be a part of this process has just been an incredible honor. I want to thank, of course, the administrators in the room, the senior leaders, the junior staff that make all of you look good, and they do. There's so much that goes on behind the scenes that you can't even begin to quantify it or qualify it, and I can't express how genuinely just it's just beyond my wildest dreams or imagination that me, Greg Dow, would be in this room with consummate professionals that you are. In your own rights, just the level of expertise, the care, the delivery, and to do it like we show up. Of course, we have some are retired and some are professionals in other areas, but we show up for a few hours, maybe keeping you on this evening. But you all live this, live it, and for how many? Well, we won't get into that. How many years, Miss Bourgeois? She has a number that she's probably willing to offer, but it's just it's genuinely humbling to have had this opportunity to learn from each one of you, to try my best, our best to support you as you do the very noble work of serving the children of this community in what we call public education. So thank you. Thank you to Miss Beth Aller. You've been a fantastic clerk for these number of years that you said yes to us. Interestingly enough, I had the great privilege to sit on Miss Aller's interview panel, which was virtual at the time. And I think we heard 4 or 5 other applicants for clerk that year at that time, and they were okay. For some reason, Miss Aller, I think she was last, and just knocked it out of the park. So much so that Dr. Herron was ready to hire her like that day, and I said, "Whoa, that was too clean. I have to see this woman in person. Like that, you having to come in. I think there was a holiday weekend or something. I'm sorry." That was on me. But I just couldn't believe that she was so polished, so professional, so just with it, and that she was going to be able to provide all of the expertise that she guaranteed in that meeting. And then we saw it and we've seen it since. So a gem. And I just thank you for, again, saying yes to us and being a part of this team. And, of course, we would always be remiss to fail to recognize our tech guys in the closet who show up for us. And they're just wonderful, wonderful men, young men that I've enjoyed to get to know over the last few years. I just want to say thank you for the opportunity to be here. I've not cried this much since I told my corporal and sergeant and my police team that I was leaving for Virginia. But when I did, I knew that I was following the Lord's desire and plans for my life. None of this would have happened if I hadn't been obedient. As much as I'd love to stay, I have to be obedient. But I know that we have three fantastic school board members that are going to hold the fort down. They're going to raise up a younger generation of board members through your leadership, through your example, through your patience, through you answering the phone call, having those coffees. I wasn't great at that, I apologize, but you three are. You three are. And so I have every confidence that this board is ready for the next challenge. And that next challenge is raising up another young board and hitting the issues and the responsibilities, just hitting them as they roll your way. So thank you for letting us speak this evening, giving us the opportunity to share with each one of you what this has meant to us. Thank you. So I will share upcoming events here. Turn my mic on, share upcoming events here. The Student Advisory Committee is meeting tomorrow. That's unfortunate, sorry. December 13th at 3, Lafayette High School Media Center. And then we have the budget work session, closed session, and organizational meeting, work session and action items on January 4th here in the annex, room 300, 4, 6, and 6:30 respectively. And then on the 16th of January, budget work session, closed session, and regular meeting with pre-budget public hearing, 4, 6, and 6:30. And that pre-budget public hearing will be at the James Blair Middle School Gymnasium. I believe the agenda is set for the next meeting. All right, this meeting's adjourned.